Some people call me sweetheart, but feel free to decide after the boat ride what you think. We're cruising today through the medieval center of Ghent on two rivers called the Lys and the Lieve. Now in Dutch we call the Lys the Leie. That's very hard to pronounce for English-speaking people. I'll give it a try. Anyway, we could follow this river, the Leie, till the end of the river, or the source of the river actually, to be more precise, which is 186 kilometers in that direction. It would end in Paris 3 days later, so I'm not going to put you through that. It's going to be a very expensive boat ride as well. Now we're going to stay in the city of Ghent today. The first thing we're going to see is the old Ghentian grain harbor. So nice. In between the next two bridges, the Ghentian harbor, which around the Middle Ages was actually the second biggest port in Europe. Only Paris had a bigger harbor. This was a grain harbor, ein Getreidehafen. And it's thanks to this harbor that the Ghentians became very rich, because we use grain to make bread and beer, which still today is the average diet of the Ghentians. So thanks to this harbor we became very rich. Donc aussi aux francophones, je vous souhaite la bienvenue. Moi je m'appelle Jordi, c'est comme chanson dur d'être bébé. J'étais juste un peu plus jeune. On va voir les voies d'eau, la Lys et la Lièvre aujourd'hui. Premièrement, on va entrer notre port de Ghent. C'est ici entre les deux ponts. C'est le second grand port d'Europe au XIe siècle. Et juste Paris avait un port plus grand. Et c'est grâce à notre port que les Gantois ont se rapidement enrichis. Et aujourd'hui, on a plein d'architecture magnifique dans le port de Ghent. Donc, on va commencer notre voyage à cause de la rivière. Le bâtiment avec la ligne verticale, c'est la maison de corporation des maçons, aussi appelée l'Ange. Et gauche de ce bâtiment, vous pouvez voir la plus petite maison de Ghent. Ça mesure juste 1,40 m. Pas assez de place pour un lit pour 2 personnes, c'est vraiment vivre en solitude. So let's start on the left-hand side here. You can see the building with the vertical lines. This is the guild house of the Freemasons and the Vrijmetselaars, the Vrije Mauer in Dutch. And to the left of that building, you can see the smallest house of Ghent. It's only 1 meter and 40 centimeters wide. It doesn't even fit a double bed in there. I always figured it must be a very lonely place to live. Here, on the left, just next to the building with the lines, there's a small house wedged in between the other houses. The grey building a little bit further is the oldest building in the harbour. It was built in 1200. This was a grain storage area. Donc le plus ancien bâtiment de notre port situé à notre gauche, le bâtiment gris, c'est l'entrepôt de grains. 1200 c'était construit. Mon bâtiment favori de notre port, un peu plus loin, après la petite ruelle, avec le bateau au-dessus de la porte, évidemment, la maison de corporation, le batelier. 16e siècle, le bateau au-dessus de la porte, c'est le bateau utilisé par Christophe Colomb quand il a découvert l'Amérique en 1492. Le Santa Maria. L'office du poste, juste devant le pont, c'était construit au début du XXe siècle. Aujourd'hui, une galerie marchande et un hôtel. C'est possible de dormir dans le tour, inspiré par le Big Ben à Londres. Après le bâtiment, vous pouvez voir le tour. Avec l'horaire sur le tour. Bon, on the left-hand side here, ladies and gentlemen, the last building in front of the bridge is the 20th century post office, which nowadays is a shopping mall as well as a hotel. And so you can sleep inside the clock tower. And the clock tower is actually inspired by the Big Ben of London. That's our little Benny right there. And a room inside there will cost you 360 euros a night in the low season, and in the summer it's 1,500. But then you see the view from the tower and you realize, wow, this is amazing. But I could have had the exact same view from a boat for 9 euros. And you're on the left-hand side. The The Three Towers of Ghent, the medieval Manhattan, I like to call this. Which first has the St. Nicholas Church in front of us. Was once used by Napoleon to breed his horses. Second tower is the Belfry. It has a golden dragon on top of the tower, which I know it kind of looks like a chicken, but it's a dragon up there. I've seen it breathe fire during the city festival 4 years ago every evening. 8-meter flame from the dragon's mouth. Finally, just in the distance there is the St. Bavo Cathedral, which houses the mystic lamb. Hello. À notre gauche, les 3 tours de Gand. Le plus éloigné, c'est la cathédrale de Saint-Bavon, où on peut admirer l'adoration de l'agneau mystique, le tableau célébré de Frère Honeck. Au milieu se trouve le beffroi avec le dragon doré au-dessus du tour, protecteur symbolique de Gand, qui a craché du feu quelques années passées pendant les fêtes de Gand, notre festival anniversaire. Finalement, juste en face de nous, l'église de Saint-Nicolas du XIIIe siècle, utilisée par Napoléon comme étable de chevaux. So in the cathedral, you can see this painting, the Mystic Lamb, and Lammes Gottes in Deutsch, Lamm Gottes. Now, a couple of years ago, it was €3. Now it's already €16. I tried to be efficient with my money, so I say €16 buys you 4 Belgian beers. And you finish those ones, come back here to the left, you watch the free copy of the same painting against the wall. After 4 beers, you're not going to notice a difference anyway, believe me. No, beautiful painting here was made as a promotional image for the movie The Monuments Men. It's not as beautiful as the original, I think. Promise. Le grand bâtiment gris à notre droite, c'est un monastère de dominicains fondé au XIIIe siècle. Tout le complexe acheté par l'université de Gand pour boire beaucoup de champagne avec leur ami riche. C'était une centre culturel de l'université. Mais bon, le champagne est fini, donc ils ont décidé de vendre le bâtiment pour acheter plus de champagne. Et c'est à vendre maintenant pour 4 millions d'euros, le monastère. Mais au XVIe siècle, les protestants étaient en guerre avec les catholiques et le deuxième iconoclasme. Et les protestants, ils ont volé la libraire du monastère. Ils ont jeté 30 000 manuscrits écrits à main par la fenêtre dans la rivière. On dit qu'on pouvait traverser l'eau sans se mouiller les pieds, juste pour marcher au-dessus des livres. Et en discutant des livres dans l'arbre en face de nous, vous pouvez voir quelques oiseaux blanches qui sont illuminés bleus dans le soir. Et comme ça, c'est un hommage à Maurice Maeterlinck, l'écrivain qui a gagné les prix Nobel pour son livre L'oiseau bleu en 1913. Right, the white building with the balcony on the left-hand side is the former residence of a very famous Belgian writer by the name of Hugo Claus. He's not that internationally famous, you might not know him, but his girlfriend, Sylvia Christel, now she was famous for her body language in the movies Emmanuel 1, 2, 3, and 4. Usually there's at least one guy that starts to blush when I say that. You're too young. Anyway, on the left-hand side of the water, we've got a big Dominican monastery, Dominicanen Kloster, which stems from the 13th century. Jeez. Now, it's owned by the University of Ghent now. They decided to put it for sale. 4.3 million euros. What a bargain. Sure. Now, back in the 16th century, you had a religious war in these regions between the Protestants and the Catholics. They call it the second iconoclasm between Beeldestorm, Dutch and German, the Zweiten Bildersturm. Now, during this religious war, the Protestants, they went pillaging through Flanders, and in Ghent alone, they destroyed 8 churches, 25 monasteries, 10 hospitals, and a cathedral. And they broke into this monastery. From the library, they stole 30,000 books, threw them out of the water into the river. And so they say that in those days here in Ghent, you could cross the river by walking on water.
Okay. It's Bible.
This, I think, is one of the most beautiful views of the city. You have all of the architecture here, the castle in the distance, the students of Ghent chilling around the water. Like a postcard. On nice and summery days, you can find more students chilling here next to the water than you can find in the classroom.
Chill toch, hoe staat niet te babbelen?
On the left-hand side of the water, the yellow house has a golden ship on top of the roof, which turns along with the wind, so it's a weather vane, wind fan, and wetlandvaart. And that showed the shipper and how they could enter the harbor back when they were only on sail. À notre gauche, vous pouvez voir les deux signes dorés sur la façade du Mario qui se séparent. Normalement, le signe ici s'approche et forme un cœur, symbole de l'amour. Mais ici, le cœur est cassé, très symbolique. Ce bâtiment était une bordel au XVIIe siècle, donc plein de cœurs cassés dans le Mario. Juste en face de nous, le marché de poissons du XVIIe siècle, avec au-dessus du toit le trident doré de Neptune. Aujourd'hui, centre d'information touristique. À l'autre côté, le marché de viande du XVe siècle. On the left-hand side is the fish market, 17th century. On the right-hand side, the meat market, 15th century. The fish market now is a touristical information center as well as a nice event hall. Yesterday they had a meeting between the Prime Minister of Belgium and Holland in this building. Rutte en Macron, heb je dat nieuws gezien?
Ja, ik heb het
Dat was
gezien.
dus alles is hier.
Ja.
Dans un instant, je vais vous montrer la sculpture la plus connue de toute Belgique. Évidemment, le mannequin-pisse. Le mannequin-pisse, c'était le mascotte des tanneurs. Et les tanneurs, ils avaient besoin de beaucoup d'ammoniac pour travailler le cuir. La source de l'ammoniac, c'était l'urine le matin des petits garçons et filles. Donc les tanneurs donnaient 2 centimes par 2 millilitres d'urine pour faire le fichu. C'est comme ça que les mannequins sont devenus la mascotte de la richesse des tanneurs ici à Belgique. Et le mannequin-pisse de Ghent se trouve à notre gauche au-dessus de la porte à la Maison Blanche avec sa sœur jumelle, Nestor, Luna et Lena. On the left, on top of the door of the White House, that's a little peeing guy. You might know him from Brussels, but Ghent has their own peeing guy. And actually, it's older than the Brussels one, so he has a prostate problem and can't pee anymore. But anyway, mannequin-pisse, if you ask a guide in Brussels, they will tell you that the young guy extinguished a fire in a basement with the power of his pee-pee. I don't believe those guys. The real story behind the mannequin-pisse was that he was a mascot of the Belgian Tanners Guild, the leerlooiers, and the gabbetzoekt, so the people that worked on leather. And to work on leather, you need ammonia. Ammonia makes the leather nice and soft, and the best source of ammonia was young guys and girls' morning urine. So in the Middle Ages, they actually used to pay young people to pee. This was 2 cents per half liter of urine. Now I do this for free every day, so I'd sign up for that job immediately. But these young guys that were smarter than me, when they went to pee, they brought a bottle of water, threw the water into the urine, made more money. Very smart. But because of that, the water was also diluted. It didn't contain the same amount of ammonia anymore. So the tanners, yeah, they had to start checking the quality of the stuff that they brought inside. And so came to be the most horrible job in the history of mankind, the official pee taster for the Tanners Guild. You have to actually drink that stuff. Yeah, I'm not kidding about that. That's a really horrible job. These people didn't last for very long, of course. They became very sick and moved away from the job, moved away from the city, moved away from Belgium, ended up far up north, founded a brewing company called Heineken over there. They've been making money like that ever since. And the Heineken part is a joke, just to be clear. The other part of my explanation definitely is. But I once told that joke to a boat. I had a bigger boat, 55 Dutch people. I say, this is the moment, my Heineken joke. And this awkward silence falls behind. So I turn around, I go, you guys are fans of Heineken by chance? And this guy gets up, I'm the CEO of Heineken. I don't like your humor, young man. That's the day I almost lost my job.
This is so good.
These are little gondolas here on the left coming from Bangladesh. You can take them for a tour as well with your lover, like in Venice, with your own gondolier. Very romantic, very quiet, very pricey. Just like in Venice. Les petits bateaux ici, ils viennent de Bangladesh et vous pouvez les prendre pour un tour, mais c'est son guide, c'est avec un gondolier comme à Venise. Très romantique. Et je vais tourner juste en face de mon restaurant favori. C'est vraiment très romantique, c'est comme une rêve à l'intérieur. I'm going to turn us around, ladies and gentlemen, in front of my favorite restaurant. Now, I don't get paid to say this, but look inside of this place and tell me it doesn't look like a fairy tale to you. With the blossom trees inside the restaurant. Should you want to take a first date there, which I can highly recommend, it's worked for me in the past. It's called Restaurant Prince. Just make sure you have a lot of cash before you enter that place. It's quite expensive. Le restaurant s'appelle Le Prince, comme le petit prince, mais plus grand. À notre gauche, un grand canal rouge qui s'appelle la Folle Margot. Guys want to listen to the music for a bit? No? Okay. No worries. Donc la Folle Margot, construit 15e siècle, juste utilisé une fois, ils ont tiré le boule, mais le boule a traversé 50 cm et est tombé là-bas. Pas un grand succès, c'est notre Folle Margot. C'est un symbole de paix pour la Grande 3 et un bon exemple de technique belge au fil des siècles. This large red cannon here on the left is called Mad Meg. In Dutch is called the Dulle Griet. In German, the Tolle Grete. And in Spanish, one of the few things I can say, Margareta la Rabiosa. And this cannon, it got a Spanish name because it was used against the Spanish army of Filipo II. And they shot this cannon, but the cannonball ended up 50 centimeters in front of the cannon on the floor. It's still lying there today, so it's not a great success. It became a symbol of peace for the Ghentians. And the only thing that they changed in 500 years is that they shut the barrel of the cannon because every day they found students sleeping inside of Mad Meg.
uitmaakt wanneer met toffe mensen opstaan.
This is what they like to call the alcoholic corner of Ghent, which is ridiculous because every corner of Ghent has alcohol. Anyway, here specifically the beer house is the old guild house of the brewers. And the Engel and Wilkins building on the right is the old guild house of the wine merchants. And that's why these both buildings have windows on the water level, so they could directly transport the new cargo into those cellars. Now, everybody knows that the Belgians, well, one second. Us Belgians, we really love our beer. We have 1,700 types of beer for sale in Belgium. They're coming more every day at the microbreweries. Now, this tradition of beer drinking stems from the Middle Ages because the water here was so dirty that it was actually healthier and cheaper to drink beer than to drink water. So of course the poor Ghentians, they couldn't do anything else. We had to drink beer all day, every day. And the Ghentians, they drank about 400 liters of beer a person a year in the Middle Ages, 15th, 16th century. Nowadays we're down to 300, so we're doing a bit better. But no, it's not true, 82 liters now, quite a lot, but not the same. But the brewers, they were going to build the biggest church in town with the highest tower of Belgium. And you can see the result in the distance. And they didn't get the highest tower, I can tell you that. After 200 years of building, their money was finished. So they didn't have money to finish the rest of the tower. And that's why it has a half clock tower. Au distance, l'église de Saint-Michel, financée par le brasseur qui était riche comme Crésus, par vendre 400 litres de bière par personne par année ici au Moyen-Âge. Mais bon, après 2 siècles de construction, le région était finie. Mais le tour n'était pas complet. Et comme ça, on a un demi-tour dans le centre de Gand. L'église de Saint-Michel. Mais vraiment, c'est magnifique à voir, l'acoustique à l'intérieur. Magnifique. Les peintures à l'intérieur, magnifique. Vraiment. Une recommandation de visiter. Et à notre gauche, maintenant, le seul façade en bois qui nous reste à Gand du XVIe siècle. La plupart de la ville était construite de bois, sauf les très riches, ils avaient une maison de pierre. Charles Quint a interdit la construction de maisons en bois parce qu'il avait trop d'incendies au Moyen-Âge, évidemment. This is the only remaining wooden house of Ghent here on the left-hand side, 16th century building. You have to imagine Ghent in the Middle Ages was most these kind of wooden houses, and those days only the stinking rich people could afford stone houses. And that's why in Dutch and in German we actually have an expression, people can be stone rich, steenrijk, steinreich. But in English they say stinking rich, which I always found fascinating. I bought an expression dictionary, especially for the occasion. And there's a couple of theories surrounding the saying, but the most plausible one is basically that in the Middle Ages you could give money to the church to forgive your sins. As you gave a lot of money, you were very rich, all of your sins are forgiven. So when you died, you were not buried in the cemetery, but you were buried underneath the church, in a crypt in the church with the rich people. And all of these bodies of rich people laid underneath the church, and according to the stories, when you went to church on Sunday, you could smell those bodies stinking away. So you could literally smell the stinking rich. Now, stinking rich people had stone houses, but the really, really, really stinking rich had something even nicer. Wow. Yes, that's the enthusiasm I was looking for. Le château des Comtes, mesdames et messieurs, construit 1180. C'est la résidence des comtes pendant plusieurs siècles, mais au fil des siècles. Le château a aussi servi comme prison, de justice, fabrique d'autant au XIXe siècle. Aujourd'hui, vous pouvez y trouver au musée des instruments de torture. Mais vraiment, le guide audio du musée, c'est très drôle à faire, c'est vraiment une recommandation de photo parce que le guide audio est écrit par un comédien belge. Vraiment très marrant. Vous visitez le château de torture. Mais ils ne disent pas dans le guide audio que le château était pris par les étudiants pour protester l'augmentation du prix des bières. De 3 fois à 4,5. Donc 130 étudiants, ils ont pris le château, ils sont en train de jeter des œufs et des tomates contre la police, mais malheureusement après 3 heures, tous les étudiants étaient dans la prison et c'était la fin d'un prix moins cher de bière pour la Belgique. And English, as we go back to the other institutions.
Allee, was dat geen goeie of wat?
À notre droite, mesdames et messieurs, le monastère des Augustins. Vous pouvez prier là-bas à la Sainte Rita, la sainte patronesse des cas désespérés. Donc, elle a encore plein de visiteurs, on a plein de cas désespérés à gauche. On the right, we've got an Augustinian monastery. And more beer without bringing some from the captain. Come on, guys. No. The monastery of the Augustinians, which actually is still a place of pilgrimage. People come here to pray to Saint Rita, the saint patroness of the hopeless people. So quite a few thousands of people visit here every year to pray for their hopeless loved ones. And 6 monks live here as well. So if you want to pray for your favorite boatsman, here is Saint Rita on the right hand side. Juste en face de nous, vous pouvez trouver le pont de plaisir impériaux. C'est un hommage à l'empereur Charles Quint. Charles Quint est né ici à Ghent en 1500. Et toutes les sculptures autour du pont, le mur à son vie. Charles Quint, toujours en train de ses activités préférées, c'est faire de la guerre ou faire de l'amour. Charles Quint, il avait un empire d'Espagne jusqu'à Norvège, des colonies au sud d'Amérique, donc c'était un empire, le soleil ne se couche jamais. Il avait aussi, il parlait 7 langues fluidement. Il avait 27 enfants avec 17 femmes différentes, plein de travail pour Charles Quint. Charles Quint a aussi nous donné notre surnom très étrange, les porteurs de cordes. Parce que les Gantois ne voulaient plus payer des impôts à Charles Quint en 1539. Et Charles Quint a décidé de punir les Gantois par commander lui de promener entre la ville en portant une robe blanche, le crâne rasé, les pieds nus et le nœud coulant autour du cou. Un symbole de donner la vie à l'empereur, en fait. Pour les Gantois, le nœud encore aujourd'hui, c'est un symbole de notre fierté, de notre rébellion contre l'empereur. Et comme ça, encore aujourd'hui, vous pouvez trouver plein de Gantois qui portent leur nœud quand ils marchent dans la ville. Un symbole de fierté gantois. En fait, le seul vestige qui nous reste du palais se trouve à notre gauche, au-dessus de autour du coin, la tour noire et rouge. C'était la porte d'entrée du palais de Charles. appelée la Porte Noire. Et en face de sa porte, une statue d'une porteur de cordes. Alors, sculpture verte. Je vais voir si mon ami est encore ici. See if my friend is still here. It's quite late. No, we're out of luck. There's actually a turtle that lives here. But he only comes out when it's warm enough, and now it starts getting colder, so he probably submerged again. Malheureusement. Malheureusement, il a une tortue là-bas, mais tortue. Il est juste dans le soleil, commence à être très chaud. Maintenant, c'est déjà trop froid pour nous. Bon, juste en face de nous, le Rabot, c'est une écluse fortifiée du 15e siècle. Si on ouvrait l'écluse, on pouvait faire inonder 13 km à l'autre côté. Et comme ça, c'était facile de se défendre contre les armées. Juste utilisé contre Maximilien d'Autriche au 15e siècle, qui a perdu la guerre dans 5 minutes de travail pour les Comtois. Juste ouvrir la porte, c'était fini. This building here in front of us, ladies and gents, is called a Rabot. It is a fortified military waterlock. It was a defense mechanism of the Ghentians. This was a part of the city wall. Now, its function was basically to pile up the water on this side of the building, and then when you opened the gates, the canal used to go through all the way to Bruges, 40 kilometers onwards. Anyway, when you opened the gates, you could flood 13 square kilometers on the other side of the building. So an enemy army that wanted to attack the city of Ghent, we just open this gate, and the army gets washed away. Now this was only used once against Maximilian of Austria, and Maximilian of Austria never came back, but he did make some children with his cousin, and then those children made some children with their cousins, and from that heap of incest came to be Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor. The Spanish in the back might know him as Carlos I de España. He was born here in Ghent, naciendo en Gante. Ah, en casa con los torres rojo y black. Yeah. Okay, anyway, rojo y negro. Sí. So that was the entry gate of the palace of Charles V. He was born there in the middle of the night as well. Now, when he was 8 years old, his father died, and suddenly Charles had to become king of Spain. He had grown up in Belgium, didn't speak a word of Spanish, but he was called Carlos, so that was already a big plus. Already one of them. Now, Charles, later on, he became the Holy Roman Emperor of an empire where the sun never sets. So this was an empire from Spain to Norway, colonies till South America. At that point, it was the largest empire ever known to man. It was only overclassed by the British in the 18th, 19th century with their colonization. And actually a fun fact, or not so fun fact about that, of the 193 nations in the United Nations, the Brits invaded 171 of them. So it's only 22 countries that got spared from British colonization. Anyway, Charles was a very brilliant ruler. He was also very cruel. Very strict, but also a ladies' man. They say he fathered 27 children with 17 different ladies in the course of his life. I don't think anybody on board can say the same, so Charles overclassed you. Now, we built this bridge here in front of us as a sort of tribute to Emperor Charles V. So the 4 sculptures around the bridge tell us different stories from his life. like I told you, was a ladies' man. So if you look at the second sculpture on the left, you can see that Charles is kissing a lady hidden underneath a cow. And that's actually very symbolic, because Charles had a hidden relationship with the butcher's daughter here in Ghent. So that's why he's hidden under a cow. Le deuxième port de Ghent était situé ici au Moyen-Âge. C'était un marché de vin et poissons. Aujourd'hui, je vais vous montrer, c'est vraiment une oase de tranquillité. Allez, monte. Donc à l'été, vous pouvez trouver plein de couples ici qui sont en train d'échanger des bises et des embrasses en dessous des soupes. Très romantique. So, there's nothing wrong with the engine, but I just wanted to show you how quiet it can get here. This used to be the second harbor of Ghent, the Liebekai. It was a very busy wine and fish market nowadays, a place where the lovers gather underneath the weeping willows to share some hugs and kisses. Because they say if you kiss your lover under these trees, you're gonna stay together forever. But I tried that 3 times already, and for me it never worked. So I don't think that's true. Anyway, I did have a very romantic moment here. I was cruising here a couple of years ago, 8 in the evening in August, very nice and warm outside. And back then, these weeping willows, they went all the way down to the water line. So if you went to the right side, you could literally go through the trees. It was very nice. And I was doing exactly that. I had turned off the engine like I did now, so we were slowly cruising along here to the right-hand side, underneath the trees. These people, they brought an acoustic guitarist sitting right next to me, so he starts playing a song. And everybody on board gets up, takes their lover, starts dancing. So I had like a slightly bigger boat. We had 10, 15 couples on board, all dancing under the trees. And then the guy who booked this tour then dropped onto his knees and he asked his girlfriend to marry him. Right underneath that tree right there. Super romantic. I see some couples on board right now. No, okay. No worries, no worries. I can really try it.
No.
Anyway, she said it's very smart to do it on a boat. It's very smart to do it on a boat because the water is right here. She's not going to say no. Anyway, she said yes. And the story does continue for a little bit. Because these little boats were next to the water as well. But you couldn't see them because the trees were hanging in front of it. So we're all celebrating, hugging, kissing, everybody's happy, and we pass by one of those boats, we can look inside, there's 2 naked people having stuff on the water, you know. It was really, really awkward, especially because they stopped what they were doing to give us an applause. I figured, that's weird as hell, but anyway, they're also just celebrating love in their own kind of way, you know. I still have to discuss the castle in English. And this place was built after the Second Crusades in Syria and Damas. The Count of Flanders participated. They took over a castle called the Crac de Chevalier, and they rebuilt the same place 8 times smaller. There you go, Castle of the Counts. Later on turned into a prison, then a court of justice, then a cotton factory, and nowadays a museum of medieval torture equipment. With a very nice audio guide, actually written by a Belgian comedian named Wouter de Pre, definitely worth your time. But what they don't tell you in this audio guide, I think it's ridiculously funny. This castle got taken over in November 1949, 73 years ago, by the students of Ghent. 130 students took over the castle because they wanted to protest because the price of the beer had gone up overnight, from 3 francs to 4 francs. So the students took over the castle. They were on top of those towers throwing tomatoes and eggs at the police officers, which is still today, it's called the greatest student prank of all ages. And back in 1949 already, they got internationally famous. Because in the United States, the New York Times, the newspaper, they had a headline that day saying, "The Ghentian students are the bravest in the world, even though they're not American." I think it's a very good, also, they still celebrate it every year in November inside the castle, so it's still something that the Ghentians are proud of. And I know this because I was once driving the boat, and I have a guy in the middle of my English explanation who gets up, 88-year-old Ghentian, he says, "I was there, I remember it." And he kept on for 10 minutes more. I gave him the microphone. He was telling how this was the best day of my life. It was better than my marriage, but don't tell my wife. This was a very nice moment, and I think it's very representative of the Ghentian spirit, in the sense that the Ghentians have always been rebellious, different thinking, alternative, and they're not going to break your rules per se, but they're going to bend them and see how far they can bend with a big smile on their face. And this is something that I truly fell in love with when I got to know the city of Ghent. Now, I can honestly tell you, I'm not a native Ghentian. But this is what happens here in Ghent. They say the city is contagious, in the sense you end up here, you fall in love, suddenly it's 13 years later, you're driving a boat. Now, I'm not allowed to say that the city is contagious. Last couple of years, it's become quite a problem. Anyway, I hope that my love for the city was a bit contagious for you guys, because we're almost done with our tour for today, unfortunately. So I hope all of you had fun.